Welcome to Podula Rasa. I'm David Blank.
And I'm Jim Esch.
This is a podcast about finding something in nothing.
This is Jim, and I'm joined by Dave Blank. Dave, what's our theme for this show?
Our theme for this show stems from a conversation that we had after our last show, which is the question, or trying to answer the question, when am I supposed to feel old? Because here we are, two middle-aged men who don't feel like middle-aged men.
Speak for yourself.
But that's the theme. I guess a good place to start would be just to for each of us to sort of outline how we're feeling about our lives in terms of our ages.
Well, I'll just open with the question: do you feel old?
No, not at all. Not at all. Certainly not how I thought I'd feel. You know, if you'd asked my 25-year-old me what I would be feeling at 57, I don't think I would be feeling like I was 25 still.
That's amazing. I don't know if I feel exactly the same way. I think in some sense I do feel old or older. Some parts of my body are beginning to break down a little bit. I'm, like the signs of aging are there, but maybe that's not what you're driving at.
No, I mean, that's certainly part of it. And as you said that, I'm thinking I'm probably gleefully ignoring those markers as well.
How do you do that? I want to know the secret.
Creative thought. I don't know.
Selective thinking.
Yeah. I mean, certainly there are things which are, you start putting on weight, harder to take it off. I feel lucky in a lot of ways. I've lost some friends in the last couple of years. Really, I mean, I've lost people over my entire life, but now I think about that and I think, well, okay, that's not me. I don't know if it's natural to compare, but I lost my roommate in college to cancer back in January, and I don't know. I just think, okay, so that's not how I'm going to die, but that's not me. And it's like my dad used to say. I actually, when he got old, I remember him turning to me and saying, "When did I get old?" And that was when he was in his 70s, and he had gotten sick, and he was really feeling it. And to hear him say, "When did I get old?" made me realize that he really hadn't felt old until he got sick.
Right. So I think oldness or feeling old, it's actually a very complex topic, but and I'm just thinking off the top of my head here, so forgive my scattered brainedness, but you can feel old in body, but you can also feel old in mind, and you can feel old in body, but not old in mind. So sometimes we have this feeling, I often feel that it's like, I feel like I'm basically the same person I was when I was 25. I have more experiences and everything, but I think my outlook on life is, like, I guess, for lack of a better word, youthful or vigorous. But the body doesn't always cooperate with that. Like, so, or what someone else is seeing. Like when I often think about, like, how am I being perceived by other people? Like they probably see an old man with graying hair, and probably a much older person than how I feel on the inside. Your interior consciousness doesn't feel old at all.
I think that's true. I think in terms of experiences, actually, if there's one way that I do feel maybe wiser, it's in terms of experiences. I'm feeling settled in terms of my career. I feel settled in terms of my relationships, my family. And that feels good. That doesn't feel like a bad thing.
Right.
None of those.
Well, this gets into another angle that I knew we would cover. In our culture, the adjective old is so pejorative in almost every instance. Like older equals worse. Like your body's falling apart, you're getting gray hair, your dementia sets in, like you're crippled, like you become like cranky and like angry old man and get off my lawn, or it's something that people are like terrified of. They don't want to get older. They'll do everything they can to not look older or feel older. But oldness doesn't have to be a bad thing, right?
Right.
Because you can, like as you said, you can feel wiser. Like old age often brings wisdom. Like it doesn't always, but it's nice when you feel that way.
It's a benefit. Yeah, absolutely.
There's some billboard that's like annoying billboard in my town, and it's for some kind of orthopedic surgeon. It's like a middle-aged guy, and the tagline says, be what you were. Be what you were. Like, get your knee surgery, be what you were, right? I'm thinking like, well, that is a setup. Like, I can't be what I was. Like,
Right.
okay, I can get my knee fixed, but that doesn't mean I'm going to be like dunking a basketball like I could at the age of 25.
Right.
But that's like kind of a sign that we're so afraid to get older because of what oldness means in our culture. Doesn't mean that in every culture. I mean, if you go to Asian cultures, older people are revered. Ancestors are worshipped.
Right.
How have your thoughts changed about what it means to be old going through life?
Well, I'm surprised that they have changed, I guess, because in the same moment that I don't feel like I've aged in certain respects, I definitely know that it's changed. Like, for example, I remember being in college and being at a party where there was a guy who was probably in his 30s who was there, and of course, he's trying to pick up all the younger college women, and I'm thinking, this isn't fair. And
Who was this guy?
I don't know, but he looked old to me then. I was like
Yeah.
21 or 22, and he he looked out of place. And I think that I would, if it were me in that situation, I would definitely. I think that's the reason I wouldn't go, because I feel out of place for sure. It's funny how it changes. I was thinking when you just said about the Chinese culture, I remember hearing about a Coke ad, probably in the 70s or 80s, or maybe it was a joke. I don't remember, but it was something like the ad had been translated from "Enjoy Coke" to "Coke brings your ancestors back from the dead." And I think, culturally, maybe it was impossible to translate at that moment in time, if I'm even remembering it correctly. I don't know. But I think maybe we could learn something from cultures that do revere people as they get older. Maybe, I mean, I wonder why. Is it because they have more to add? Because in our culture, it seems like, at least the way things are going, the older you get, the less medical treatment you might be eligible for, and you might be, limited. It might not be possible because of your age, because it might not be deemed worthwhile.
Right.
Didn't used to be like that in this country, but that seems like that's where we're heading.
Things have changed too in our society. When I was a little child, like, I don't know, maybe 4 years old, one of my great grandfathers was still living, but he was very old. Had to be in his 80s. And I remember being around him when we visited my grandparents. I remember he just seemed so old. Like his skin was all wrinkled and like discolored and kind of pale and white hair. I was almost like afraid to have him touch me or to touch him. I was just like, you're touching something that's just like, am I ever going to look like that?
You might catch it.
It was, I couldn't comprehend it. Like my
Yeah.
little 4-year-old brain was like, he was like an alien.
Mhm.
And then we went to there was this place called the Picnic Grove, which was just outside of town, a mile or two. They had a little playground there, and I was on the swings, and I remember him showing me his pocket watch. He had one of these ancient pocket watches, which was like 100 years old or something. I thought that was cool. And so he found ways to kind of like get me used to him. And then he got on the swings.
Really?
Yeah, I remember. I think he was even like standing up. There was like this low swing, and he was just like going back and forth. And I just thought that was like the cool. All of a sudden, he became like endearing. Like this is really cool. You can be that old and still like play on the swings like I am. And then when he started to fail, this is how times have changed. That my grandmother was one of several siblings. She had a lot of sisters, and they didn't put him in a nursing home. They would, each sister would have him for maybe 3 months and take care of him, and then he would go to the next sister, like one couple in Ohio, couple in PA, and they took care of him until he died. I don't think that's too common anymore. That's more of like an old world way
Yeah.
of,
I know
of
people who've done that, and I think that's how I would prefer to do it when, when my mother gets old. Um, listen to me. I mean, she's in her 80s, and I'm saying when she gets old.
but she doesn't
'Cause-
seem old, right?
No, she acts young.
Right.
She's got all her faculties. And hi, mom, if you're listening. So that's and I feel blessed because of that, and I'm not really thinking about eventualities. Just trying. I think in a way, maybe I'm just living in the moment, which is something I've always tried to do.
Right.
I'm doing it now more than I ever did.
I was reading this message board, and sometimes it's fun to read, sometimes annoying, but there was this super depressing thread, and I was reading this late at night. Like this was not the thing to be reading like right before bedtime, but it was like kind of like, well, like when's it going to be time to be put in a nursing home, right? When you get to that point of old age, and like, what would you do? What are you going to do when you get in that situation? And people are like, oh, I'll kill myself, like instead of go there, or I'll get in-home care, blah, blah, blah. And I'm reading this, I'm just thinking like, wow, I don't even want to think about this. Then I thought, I think if I get to that point, if I'm lucky enough to live that long, to the point where like I might need nursing home care, I'll probably have a much more different attitude than I have about it even now. Like if you go to a nursing home and you're 25, it's like super depressing place to be, right? But if I'm 95, it might not seem all that bad. Okay, like at least
Yeah.
I get some minimal level of care. I can't care for myself, so maybe I'll appreciate it being there. Who knows?
I worked in a nursing home when I was 16.
Oh, you did?
I worked in Dunwoody.
That had to shape some of your attitudes about old age, I would think.
Maybe. I mean, I didn't understand why the residents weren't with their families. Their families would come to visit,
Mhm.
but it seemed like when I was in housekeeping, and when I would go into, empty the trash or make a bed or whatever I was doing, they really wanted to talk. And I would sit and listen. In fact, I got in trouble for it a couple of times because I spent too much time listening or talking with people and hearing their stories. In a way, though, I feel so blessed to have done that and been there and heard that, because I bring those people forward in me now, in a way.
Yeah.
I mean, I remember hearing George Baird, who was a World War I vet who had been gassed by the Germans and recovered. And this was in 1980, and he lived a very full life, and he loved to tell his stories. Or there was a woman named Margaret Linton, who I didn't intend on talking about these people, by the way. It just hit my head in my mind.
That's great that
But
you remember their names.
Oh yeah, she traveled across Africa in the 20s, like by like plane. And hearing her stories, they were so fantastical. I can't remember any of them, but I remember the way that she would tell them. I still remember how she looked and her voice even. And so I think in a way I was providing more than housekeeping services.
Yeah.
But I don't really think that they looked at themselves as old either. I mean, they were in this facility, and clearly this was like the last stop, but I don't think they saw it like that.
Even my father-in-law, Jerry, he passed away a few years ago, and he had some medical problems before that. But he always would say, "I don't feel old. I don't feel old."
Maybe it's part of the human condition that we just react to our own aging or our own decrepitude in that way. You just kind of, we make it okay. But in a way, whatever it is, I feel really lucky to think about things the way that I do now. Because I think it would be pretty depressing to think, oh my gosh, I'm 57. I know so many people who were dead before they were my age.
Yes. Right.
So like the statistics are very slowly rising and in the wrong way. What do you think about all of the bands that are 50 years and older? Like the Stones, they're like 59 years and still touring, that they've been a band. I mean, what is that? You know, Mick Jagger's almost 80, I think, or maybe he is.
Yeah, I don't know. What do you think about it?
I just think they just keep going. You know, they like, or Cheap Trick, where it's two original members and their kids. You know, that's like almost 50 years now, I think, or maybe it is 50. You know, Rick Nielsen's still wielding that 5-neck hammer. It's insane, but he still does it. Like, I think maybe it's just, they're just going to keep going until they can't go anymore, because that's what they do.
This came up with Genesis too. I don't know if you've been following.
Yeah, they're on tour now too.
Yeah, and poor Phil Collins, like he can't even stand. I mean, he's in a chair. Yeah. And he looks very old, Phil.
Yes, I've seen the pictures.
Yeah, and there's a lot of live clips on YouTube if you want to see. And Tony Banks and Mike Rutherford, they still look in pretty good shape. They're gray, but they look fit.
Right.
But there's Phil sitting in the chair singing, trying to hit the notes. And part of it looks a little pathetic, but a part of me is like, you know, why not? He's got every right to sing his songs.
As long as people will keep listening, you know, maybe in the past, you just got put out to pasture and you just accepted it.
Mm-hmm.
And now these people are refusing to go out to pasture. They're like, look, people will still come and fill the arena. So we're going to keep doing this.
Bob Dylan's going back on tour.
Yeah, I know.
He's what, 80 now?
Yep. There's a man who met Woody Guthrie, you know?
I'm tempted to go to that show. He's doing 2 nights in Philly, but probably won't do it.
Why not?
I've seen him so many times, but the one thing that would make me see him is like, I mean, how many more of these tours are there going to be? And it has been maybe over 10 years since I've seen him live. But there was a phase there when I was younger. I was so much younger then. I'm older than that now. Anytime he came within a 3-hour radius, we would go see him. This was like early 90s, late 80s, early 90s. It would be kind of nice to see him perform one more time.
I guess the thing that I think about when I think about those bands is that they're either they just don't feel that they should be done, or they don't care. You know, and why not just keep not caring until you're done?
Who was the oldest performer you've seen? That's a good question. And did you feel like they were past their sell-by date, or they shouldn't have been on stage, or was it okay?
I saw Yes back in 2015, and that was the first show I went with my son after Chris Squire died. I was really kind of excited. I'd seen them with him for a couple of times, but I thought they were definitely past their prime, especially for that show. I mean, Yes is kind of a funny band because they really play, and you know, sometimes they have good days, sometimes they have crappy days, and this was just not a great show in my estimation. So, I mean, Steve Howe looked like, you know, the Crypt Keeper. You know, he can still play, but just to see him there, it's different from seeing him on videos from the 70s even, or even the later shows that in the late 90s and the 2000s where they were doing all their classic hits. I saw Chris Smither a bunch of times, and I think the last time I saw him, he was over 70, but he never looked old to me. That guy, I mean, he's going to play till he's 100 anyway, at least according to his songs. And I've met him a couple of times, and there is a young soul. I mean, you might think of him as an old soul because he's so connected into, you know, the roots of music. But that guy is he's an amazing person to meet.
You made me think of this Rick Beato video I watched not long ago. You watch him on
I
YouTube,
do,
right?
yes.
And he had this tribute to classical pianist Marta Argerich. She's a Argentinian classical pianist, one of the great pianists of our
I
era.
think I saw it.
And she's in her 80s and she's
Yeah.
still doing concerts playing virtuoso grade stuff
Yep.
in her 80s. I don't even know what to say about that. It's like so amazing.
Yeah. He did a show on his aunt, who was a keyboard player, and it was very special. It was featuring his relationship with her as well as her as a musician and her outlook on life, and highly recommend seeing that if you haven't seen it.
I'll check it out.
I think her name was Aunt Peg, if I'm remembering correctly. It was a while ago, but and she's since passed away. But really awesome stuff. I think kind of relates to what we're doing right now in the show.
Right. I just feel like getting older is just, it's an attitude thing. Like it's, you can just, no matter where you are, at whatever point in life you're at, it's all about almost how you frame that experience that matters.
Right. And it's okay.
It's okay.
You know, it's okay. Which is how, it's a good way to feel anyway. But especially with something like that, because you can't do anything about it. It's just what it is.
So what do you think the future is going to look like?
I think it's going to look just like it looks like now until it doesn't. You know, whatever that means. I don't even want to speculate, you know. You can worry about what's going to happen, but I was talking to my daughter yesterday about this, and I said, you know, did you ever notice that when you worry about something, when it actually happens, it's not nearly as bad as what you thought it was going to be?
Very true.
And we were actually talking about death, and she said, you know, I'm not really afraid, because I think she kind of has a similar outlook to me about life and the universe and everything. Maybe because I blab it to her too much. But I think you know, she was just saying, you know, it's just because I don't know. That's what makes it scary. Oh, this was really interesting, actually. She said to me, you know, I think she was in a class, and she said, I realized that instead of being afraid, I was actually kind of excited. She's like, don't worry, Dad, I'm not thinking about killing myself, but excited to someday find out what everybody else gets to find out one time or another. And I thought, my God, that's such an amazing way to think about it. That is how I think about it. In a way, I hadn't put it in those terms, but I think, wow, you know,
Yeah. That's a great
very
attitude.
Yeah. I'm glad that I can, you know, that I have that relationship with her, that she can tell me those things.
Right.
So, and I'm not just saying that because she's one of our listeners, but but it is really, it's amazing. I mean, I think it's one of the reasons why years and years ago I wanted to be a parent, just for those moments. You know, I feel it's, you know, it's an island that I'm lucky to step onto now and then.
But you're right about worrying. Like if you're worrying now in the moment, and you're ruining your present moment, which is all you have anyway.
Right.
The future doesn't exist. The past doesn't exist. Only now exists.
That's right.
And you're worried.
Well, we can't change the future or the past, although many of us will try to change the past. If you watch the news.
Yeah.
But nobody gets it right. You know, it's, I don't watch news anymore for that reason. It's just, you know, unless something really crazy happens, it just doesn't matter.
It doesn't matter. It already happened.
Right.
It's going to be misconstrued and misunderstood and spun, and, you know,
For not the right reasons. Almost
for not
in
the right
every
reasons.
case.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Why do I need to know about what just happened yesterday or 5 hours ago?
Right. So have we solved anything?
As usual, no.
It's an interesting conversation to have, though. I'm glad that we have engaged in that.
Yeah. Yeah. And I hope listeners, if you have your thoughts on getting older and what that means, or if it's something that you welcome, fear, send us some feedback. We'll kick it around with you by email.
Or a poem or a song would be fine too.
Yeah. I mean, I was thinking of that Dylan lyric. The Birds covered that song. My back pages.
Right.
I was so much older then. I'm younger than that now. That's the way I would want to live.
Yeah. Crimson flames tied through my ears, rolling high in mighty traps. House with fire on flaming roads, using ideas as my map. We'll meet on edges soon, said I, proud neath heated brow. But I was so much older then, I'm younger than that now. Half-racked prejudice leaped forth, ripped down all hate I screamed. Lies that life is black and white, smoke from my skull I dreamed. Romantic facts and musketeers, foundation deep somehow. But I was so much older then, I'm younger than that now. Girls' faces form the forward path from phony jealousy to memorizing politics of ancient history. Flung down by a corpse evangelist, unthought of though somehow. But I was so much older then, I'm younger than that now. Self-ordained professor's tongue, too serious to fool, spouted out that liberty is just equality in school. Equality, I spoke that word as if a wedding vow. But I was so much older then, I'm younger than that now. In a soldier stance, I aim my hand at the mongrel dogs who teach. Fearing not I become my enemy in the instance that I preach. My existence led by confusion, boats mutiny from stern to bow. But I was so much older then, I'm younger than that now.
Yes, my God stood hard when abstract threats too noble to neglect, deceiving me into thinking I had something to protect. Good and bad, I define these terms quite clear, no doubt, somehow. But I was so much older then, I'm younger than that now.
Padula Rasa is created by Jim Ash and Dave Blank from their home office studios in Westchester, Pennsylvania and Gettsville, New York. Padula Rasa is available on many popular podcasting outlets. If you liked what you heard today or would like to add to the conversation, please send us an email at padularasa@gmail.com. We hope to hear from you.